All right, Spread Aviation Nation, welcome back. This is episode 33 of the Spread Aviation podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm Rob.
And this is my first episode in a few months.
In a very long time.
Yep. And Rob, you did a great job of kind of introducing what was going on with me. But on December 5th, I had some major surgery on my upper jaw. Fully recovered from that at this point. Starting to eat solid foods again and getting back into the grind. It was fun. It was fun. It was a good experience. I'm glad I did it.
Why don't you give that to camera two? Give that to camera two. Yeah.
It was fun. Definitely needed it. This is awkward. I like looking at you.
Yeah, I know. We'll look at each other later, but you're talking to the audience right now. The audience is in the camera.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, anyway. So December 5th. It's a 12-week recovery process. So, pretty much done by like March 1st. Finally starting to work out again and feeling like myself again. So, other than that, that's about it. That's kind of what's going on with me in the last 8 to 12 weeks. How were your holidays?
Mine was good.
Cool.
Yeah, no, I had a good time.
Yep.
I ended up in West Palm for Christmas, Hanukkah, and New Year's, celebrating all of those all in one.
Nice.
So that was a lot of fun.
Rob, look at the camera.
Now I'm talking to you because you asked the question. This is not me giving it to the audience who are out there.
I gotcha.
This is me giving it to you. See, it's this different game of having the cameras up here.
Yeah.
Got to get some practice with it.
Yeah.
Some of this is for me.
It'd be better to have the cameras here.
Well, we do have a camera in the middle.
Oh.
Yeah, we have that one. So that's one.
Yep.
You're on 2.
Yep.
I'm on 3.
Yep. Check
Dale,
1. Check
Dale
1.
Earnhardt.
Check 2. 2. Camera 2. Wait, this reminds me of the movie. Camera 1. Camera 2. Camera 1. Camera 2.
Which movie?
Camera 1.
Which
camera
movie?
2. I don't know.
Wayne's World.
Wayne's World.
Yes.
Camera 1. Camera 2. Camera 1. Camera... Which is so true. It's two different eyes.
Well, yeah, and the brain combines the image. We get stereo and depth perception and all kinds of things. And
speaking of eyes, I had my eye doctor appointment on Friday after not going for like 6 years, and I was totally going to be convinced that my eyes have probably gone to all, and
have regressed in your old age.
Still 2015 in both eyes naturally. Knock on wood.
Hey, don't knock on the microphones. We're sorry to everyone
Sorry
out there.
about that. Sorry.
No, 2015 in both eyes is very, very good. I paid for 2015 because I was 2,400.
Is that bad?
That's very bad. That means that what other people can see at 400 feet, I can see at 20 feet.
Oh, is that how those numbers work?
Yeah. So what other people can see at 15 feet, you can see at 20 feet.
So is the first number is the first number the feet?
They're both feet? They're both feet, yeah.
So the first number is what most people can see at 20 feet. The second number
is what you can see at 20 feet.
No, the second number is what you can see at 20 feet.
No, because what you see at 20 feet, other people see at 15. And what other people see at 20 feet, I was seeing it, what other people see at 400 feet, I was seeing at 20 feet when I was 2,400. Now in 2010 in the left eye, 2015 in the right eye.
I got you.
Or maybe it's
that's
the
an
other
interesting
way
way. I never really knew that that's what that meant. Cool.
Oh, yeah.
Everything you learn on the Spread Aviation podcast.
We're not just talking airplanes, folks. So, yeah, I was standing in my buddy's backyard in Ohio a couple months after the surgery, and we were looking across this river that ran through his backyard, and then there was a golf course on the other side, and I was talking about the orange stake on the other side of the river, and he's going, what orange stake? And I went, oh, finally, I can see something that other people can't. I felt really hoity-toity at that point.
So how old was that beef?
What?
You said orange steak. It's like, well, never mind. Steak.
Welcome back, Matt.
All right. Well... Hey,
you'll have to explain that.
So we had some interviews on. I guess episode 30 was our summary podcast, which you had said there were 28 episodes prior.
Well, yeah, we released some of those out of order, I guess.
No, because there actually were 28 episodes prior to episode 30.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Well, I don't want to give away our secret. But you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
So if you're still confused as to why Rob said there were 28 episodes before episode 30, go back and take a look. And that's all. We'll leave it at that.
You're going to ask people to do math. That's not fair. Well, we had Jeff Petroselli, we had Blaise Gallahue, we had Chris Stratton on as our guest host, and out of Jeff Petroselli being on and talking about the aerobatic competition world, we got some great feedback from the viewers out there. And so we put together another show called the Aerobatic Show that's featuring Jeff Petroselli and I, as well as some other guests, whoever we can get into the show, really, is what we're going for. But we'll be filming that one live in his hangar, surrounded by aerobatic airplanes. He's got a beautiful Stearman, a Pitts S2, there's a Christian Eagle, and his extra 330 SC, which was featured in our Instagram posts out at Oshkosh as the Spread Aviation extra of aviation excellence. So it's great to have this kind of relationship, and we'll be we'll be putting together some episodes of new content for the future, and we're looking forward to all that, as well as the aerobatic personalities that we're hoping to get on the show that will be filmed live and put out there for everybody that's out there.
The acronym for that is SAOI.
The extra of Spread
Aviation extra
Aviation
excellence. Yeah. SAOI.
See, we need more consonants.
Yep. Like my last name.
Use check. You have too many consonants way too close together. Did you watch the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Are we allowed to say Super Bowl, or do we have to say big game?
No, we can say Super Bowl. It's fine. I don't think anybody's going to chase us.
Because there was somebody on in the Super Bowl named Yazchek.
No, named Juszczyk. Juszczyk.
YK, yeah.
Juszczyk. So it's an Alpha and Yankee difference. That's it.
Well, that ain't bad. Nope. Were you cheering for...
I was conflicted because my buddy Mike is a huge Kansas City fan, has always wanted them to win. Mm-hmm. But I knew a lot of people in San Francisco who are 49ers fans.
And he plays for the 49ers.
He plays for the 49ers. So frankly, I was rooting for either side, to be honest with you. But it was like a 51-49 thing. I'm glad Kansas City won for my buddy Mike because it's been a while.
Apparently, a guy that went to school with or went to the same high school as my wife, not at the same time, was in the Super Bowl playing for the Kansas City Chiefs. So, I mean, I had a little bit of a dog in that fight. Other than that, being in New England, could have rooted for Jimmy Garoppolo to have a big game and to go out there and win one. But I enjoyed the game. I thought it was good overall, and thought it was entertaining.
Same.
Cool story. All right.
My hot water is now cold.
Well, yeah, I filled that 4 hours ago.
Yeah.
Hey, we're gonna go to the gym. Hold on, I just got sent an email.
We were going to the gym today, and then I was like, I just got to go through my email, and I realized I was about 6 days behind, so it took about 6 hours. And Rob was nice enough to make me some hot water that I was going to make some green tea with, and that was also about 5 hours ago. So now it's a little cold.
I mean, anyway. you did manage to make the tea eventually, but it was a completely different glass of water.
Yep. And man, that was green tea matcha green tea. Not a Shark Tank product or anything like that, as we have done in the past. But
what was that stuff?
Really good. Cave shakes.
I forgot about that. I mean, those were pretty good.
They were good. Yeah.
But we didn't get any money from them, so we're going to stop talking about cave shakes. Cave shakes, delicious. Check them out if you can.
Yeah.
Where can you find those?
I really don't remember, but we're not sponsored by them, so they were good though. They were pretty good. Should we close the door?
What? No, we can't close the door.
Why?
Because Belmont would be trapped upstairs without his litter box.
Oh.
Yeah. So the cat comes downstairs and he's got the litter box in the laundry room, which is right there. So we can't close those doors. We can't close the door upstairs. But I'm pretty confident that we're not getting any audio.
Cool.
From upstairs.
All right, sounds good.
So,
well, yeah, let's just dive into the episode today. We got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we've wasted enough of your time.
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to have like a 5 to 10 minute introduction. I think that was about 10 minutes, so we're good.
Yeah.
If you have any feedback on the way we opened episode 33, please send an email to hello@spreadaviation.com.
Yeah, and check us out on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook.
We're still on Twitter for now. We might. If you want us to stay on Twitter, follow us. If you don't want us to stay on Twitter, unfollow us.
We have 53 followers.
We have been stuck at 53 followers for about a year and a half, which is really funny. Like even my personal Twitter account. Sorry,
that one.
Even my personal Twitter account, I have gained followers without even posting over the years. But our Spread Aviation Twitter account is stuck at 53 followers. So
help us out.
Yeah.
So yeah, in recent news, we got to do in breaking news.
Yep.
I have to let the Morse code run. If anybody can tell us what that Morse code actually stands for, send us a message on Instagram or hello@spreadaviation.com.
Or tweet at us.
Spread Aviation. Monday night live streams. Okay, I'm getting off topic here. British Airways smashes record for quickest subsonic flight from New York to London, reaching a top speed during the flight of 825 miles per hour over the ground. The aircraft actually got into London from New York. Was it an hour and 3 minutes? Oh, you okay? Are you dying?
Sorry. Yeah, my mouth is still not fully used.
I know this is big news, but I don't think it's necessarily that.
The tea was really strong because I didn't pull the tea back. I took a sip of the tea and I was like, oh, man.
Okay, so let's see here. It comfortably beat the previous record of 5 hours and 13 minutes held by Norwegian since January 2018. Something about January and the colder months, the jet stream comes further down south, so you can capitalize on those high velocity winds aloft to get from west to east.
From a ground speed perspective, it was going faster than the speed of sound.
Yes.
From a ground speed perspective.
Ground speed. But in flight, it was still only doing about 520 miles an hour or something like that, which, I mean, it's Mach 0.82-ish, Mach 0.81. But the speed of sound is dependent on temperature. And so as the temperature goes down, the speed of sound also goes down. But the speed of sound on the ground was not affected by this flight because it wasn't the aircraft moving through the air at a true airspeed faster than the speed of sound. So there wasn't any compressibility. There weren't any shock waves. There wasn't anything out there to actually make the sonic boom. The aircraft was still in subsonic flow the entire time and had no risk of any kind of structural failure or anything like that. So it's pretty remarkable that it was able to get there and hit a top speed that was faster than the speed of sound.
Now, I was reading that an aircraft that landed after it, Virgin Atlantic, came in 1 minute slower, and then another British Airways plane came in 3 minutes slower than that. But they all three planes broke the record that had previously been held by Norwegian.
Yep.
So
I'm sorry, I think I was wrong about the time there. This says it was
like 4 hours and 53 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, let's see here. 4 hours 56. One did it in 4:57. One did it in 4:59. So you're absolutely right on that. And then it said it was almost 2 hours earlier than scheduled. But I'm not seeing the real time on this particular article.
Now, if that had been JetBlue, it would have been 3 hours late, even though it was
Wait, no, JetBlue, we love you.
Yeah, we love you, JetBlue.
You mean Spirit?
You know, it's actually,
you mean Spirit.
It's actually there's nothing.
Spirit would have charged you for the extra,
right? For the faster speed, you bought the faster
Somebody
speed
had
option.
to pay for that.
Lombardo, where are you when we need you? That's pretty awesome. You know, something else I noticed while we're talking about airliners is, Southwest recently started doing flights to Hawaii.
Ooh.
And, I mean, it's a pretty big deal, right? But what's even cooler is that they're actually flying in between the islands as well. I didn't know that. Like, what used to actually be done by Aloha Air, et cetera. Because I was looking at Flight Radar 24 the other day, and, it was actually stalking one of my friends who's flying out there. And I was like, oh, is this your flight? And he's like, nope. I'm like, oh, is this your flight? He's like, nope. And I was filtering on Southwest 737s, and there were all these inter-island flights, too. That's pretty cool. They were doing like 20-minute flights on 737s.
They were 737s.
They're all 737s.
Wow.
737s.
I'm kind of blown away by that.
Yeah. So speaking of cross ocean travel, I think this is a good segue to, you and I have been talking about, let's talk about ETOPS.
Okay.
Yeah.
As I type into the Google, tell me what you want to know about ETOPS.
Well, I mean, the thing to me is that JetBlue's been looking at getting the new extended range for their London service.
Are you now taking off your socks?
Yeah, it's getting hot. I'm like Hillary.
I'm checking the cameras to make sure your feet aren't in it.
My feet aren't in it.
Okay.
So I'm good. Well, I mean, if you're gonna put cameras
ETOPS.
So
this is the stuff that gets edited out of the podcast.
ETOPS stands for engines turn or passengers swim.
No, that's not what it stands for.
So what does it stand for?
It stands for Extended Range Twin Engine Operational Performance Standards. And it's a rule which permits twin-engine aircraft to fly routes which at some point is more than 60 minutes flying time away from the nearest airport suitable for emergency landing.
So it's really about how far you can be from a alternate.
It's kind of like how in our single-engine world we have to not be beyond power-off glide distance from shore unless we have our pyrotechnic device, our flotation device for all passengers and all that. So if this rule kind of came about in the technological advancements that happened in the 80s and 90s, moving on from the 707s and the 747s and the Airbus A340s and A300s, the four-engine jets, because the two-engine jets, the engines were getting so much more powerful and so much more efficient that you didn't need four anymore to do the same job. And so then you didn't have to carry as much weight in engines and pylons and bolts and connections and fairings and cowlings and all that. You could take more passengers and you could take more luggage and you could take more mail and cargo and make really a bigger profit.
Makes sense. I was just checking to see if anybody had emailed in from our live on Instagram, but nope.
Okay. Well, besides your interesting understanding of what ETOPS meant, engines turn or passengers swim.
Yep.
Did you have any other questions with that, or anywhere else you wanted to go with that?
No, I just think it's interesting, and you know, it is kind of a coincidence that the great circle distance between the U.S. and Europe takes you north through, you know, close to Iceland.
Yeah, because the Earth is round.
Right. So if you think about it, like people think about the Atlantic, but it's just like it's actually great that Iceland and Greenland happen to be there, because if they didn't exist, you really wouldn't have this option of.
Well, I mean, that's
the fact that you can actually fly from here to Europe and stay that close to land at all times.
Yeah, well, yeah,
is pretty impressive.
I don't know like the numbers on routes from Atlanta, but
what does ForeFlight say?
Oh, well, let's check here. This would be the perfect time for us to have an ad read. So while we're doing these things where we look up on ForeFlight or FlightAware, ForeFlight.
Yeah, do ForeFlight.
Oh, that's probably better to do on my phone, but.
Or even Florida, right?
Yeah, I mean, what are the routes like? What are the carriers? Where are they flying? What are they doing? I know coming out of New York, everybody's flying over top of Boston and Maine and headed out that way. I think they're even following the Victor 3 airway, which is right over top of us, and then headed out over to, let's see, we have some transatlantic routes. There's E's coming back, and those are way up north, so we have Q and Romeo, and yeah, Track R, Track Q, Track T, and all this kind of oceanic stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's coming off of Gander, and what is that? What's this island here? I need to learn my geography of Canada. I don't know what this is. Yeah, Newfoundland. Yeah. Labrador, Canada, Gander. Yeah. So everybody's headed up north over top of Boston from New York, and then hooking the right-hand turn, making a right-hand turn over there, out over the northern latitudes, 48, 49, and even 50 there. So, I mean, a lot of interesting things going on. Is that really? Yeah. 48, yeah. 40, 47, yeah.
I mean, here you know, I just did, well, yeah, I guess it is pretty far south of Iceland when you look at it from Florida, but still.
Oh, yeah, so Florida, if you're coming out of Florida, well, yeah, you'd have to get up to the Z routes, but then you have, let's see, are these the Canaries? What are these? The Azores. Yeah, so you got the Azores off of Portugal. The Canaries are way over off the coast of Africa. I forgot about that. Is this Bermuda? No, what is this? This is a big old island right here. Yeah, that is Bermuda. Okay. So Bermuda's out there. I actually had a customer in the tailwheel who had a Diamond Twin Star and a house in Bermuda, and he would fly the Twin Star from Norwood. No, not Norwood. From Lawrence and Bedford. I think he would go down to Norfolk, Virginia, top off with gas there, and then fly out to Bermuda.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, Diamond Twin Star, just getting some range out of that. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd do that. but yeah, in the past you had to have 4 engines for the operational safety and take a bunch of gas, but then they weren't cramming the passengers in either. There was a lot more luxury with some of those aircraft. And you had government you had government subsidies, so you didn't have to turn a profit. You didn't care about that as much. So you could burn 4 engines worth of gas, and you didn't care about not taking a completely full jet. So, yeah. But the Concorde, have you been in the Concorde?
I haven't been in it, no.
Okay, so we need to take another trip down to New York and get on, oh my goodness, I just lost the name of the aircraft carrier that's out there on the Hudson. Completely blank.
I had it in my head, and then
yep, as soon as I said
as soon as you said it, it's gone. Not Excalibur.
No, it's not Excalibur. I don't think it's the Enterprise.
Enterprise.
I got zoom in here. I got this thing.
Does it begin with a V? No.
Zooming.
Edit this out.
Zooming. Come on, little Mac, you can do it. And turn on the helicopter chart. And Hudson, zooming, enhance. Let's see, I've almost got it. Is that the wrong river? Nope, there it is. I can see the Intrepid.
Yep.
To the Intrepid. So they do tours of the Concorde that's on the deck there.
You get inside it?
You get inside. You sit in the first, I think they have the first 8 rows open.
Oh, wow.
And it's really no bigger than an Embraer 145 inside.
Wow.
Space-wise, side to side, top to bottom, standing up height.
How was the legroom?
Wasn't horrible.
No?
Wasn't horrible. But you're going so fast, you're getting to London in less than 3 hours.
It's like,
Like, oh, okay, well, I can tolerate this for less than 3 hours. And the food was amazing and all that. I mean, we didn't have any food while we were on it, but the tour of the Concorde over there was great. And the docents were very knowledgeable people, and it was an excellent tour. We should have some photos still on our Instagram. But very good time. If you're going to fly down there, Morristown isn't too far outside the city. It's about an hour and 15 minutes or so. Newark is where Matt and I have actually flown into.
Stay away from Teterboro.
Yeah, stay away from Teterboro. It's not the most friendly. But Newark was great. We had an easy time, and you get an Uber and go into the city. It was really not a big deal to get in there. And if the Uber has any trouble finding you, because it is a little tough to find Signature flight support over there, Signature will drop you off over at the terminal, and then at the Uber, they may even do like Boston now has the special area for ride-sharing apps. So they'll take you over there and drop you off, and then your ride-share picks you up, drives you over into the city.
And 4-7 November and 3-9 November are, I believe, just outside the Bravo.
You're talking about... You're not talking about...
That's
you're
Central
talking about
Jersey and Central Jersey and Princeton. A little further than Newark, but
they're
just outside the Bravo. You can still take an Uber into the city. It's not a big deal.
Linden is one you could conceivably get into without talking to anybody, but there's an 800-foot floor of the Bravo right there. It's easier just to talk to Tower and get flight following down the corridor, and they'll help point out traffic to you and keep other people from touching you and things like that. And then to get into there. So that's not really a big deal at all to use those services. I think that's just fine.
So let's transition to something a little bit more serious. Rob?
Okay.
So there's been some incidents in the last few weeks. And
well, there have.
I know we wanted to discuss this a little bit.
And with regard to some of the incidents that have happened in January was a rough month. We had a variety of incidents on the weekend of the 25th that drew a lot of attention to aviation, and not necessarily a positive light. The big one would be the loss of Kobe Bryant. And the 7 other people that were in his aircraft, the 7 people in the aircraft, in that helicopter. And we're not here to point fingers or anything like that. But we can examine what we know so far. And my big push, I suppose, or the thing that I want to point out is we need to make good choices. And part of that comes down to using the technology that we have available to us. So I don't want to talk about what happened on this particular accident, but I was flying on that weekend from Florida to California in a single seat airplane that was built for high performance aerobatics. And so it wasn't equipped with necessarily the highest of navigational resources. But I did have with me my iPad, and on it is ForeFlight, and I've paid for the top end package on it. Number one, so I could use it and actually speak with some expertise as to what tools are in there, and so that also I would have access to whatever tools they were putting in, that the company was putting in, Jeppesen was putting in, to help keep me safe, because that's what it's really about. And one of the tools that was in there was this terrain awareness avoidance system, and it shows a profile view of your aircraft and the terrain ahead of you, and it will estimate where your first impact with terrain will be if you continue on this course. And it has another mode where it evaluates your flight plan. And whatever your plan is, it will say, okay, at the altitude that you've put in here, on the path that you've put in, you're going to have a terrain conflict within 100 feet, 1,000 feet, 500 feet, 800 feet, in this area, in 40 miles, in 30 miles, in whatever. And the one I was using, because I was moving a little bit left and right of my intended course, was I was just using the one that said, okay, if I continue on this straight ahead, what am I going to touch? When am I going to touch it? I was extremely lucky with the weather the entire weekend. I didn't see a cloud until Saturday evening. Took off Saturday morning, didn't see a cloud till Saturday evening when I was at essentially my final destination anyway, and the cloud started to come down in altitude, and I was like, okay, well, I'm cold, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm done for the day. So not a big deal. And then on Sunday it was completely clear skies, visibility unlimited, and then Monday morning, completing the journey, flying through California, there were very few clouds above me. However, getting into the LA basin, there was a 200-foot thick mist layer that I could see down through. I could see everything on the ground, but if I was in that layer, it would have been rather difficult to see forward. But being above it was fine, and I could see all the terrain around me and all the terrain that was in that area, and I had the iPad that was showing me what was going on around me as well. So I was using the tools, not only the Mark I eyeball, but also the situational awareness that the iPad and ForeFlight gave me to help me make sure that I stayed safe, made sure I stayed clear of terrain that was extremely unfamiliar to me. I had never flown out in New Mexico, Arizona, California. I'd never flown out there in that kind of terrain. And it really makes the mountains that we have here look like hills. It's quite mind-blowing.
It's like when you refer to the whites in New Hampshire and they're like, oh, the White Hills, you mean? That's
yeah.
The White Mountains.
Yeah. So, I mean, but that was the Kobe helicopter crash was on Sunday. When I got to Florida on Friday evening, checked into the hotel and was getting ready for the next day and the first leg of the journey, because the key to success is preparation. I was seeing these notifications about an airshow crash in Guatemala, and unfortunately we lost Steve Andelin and two other people on the ground at the show in Guatemala, and it ratchets up the tension just a little bit. I'm already I don't want to say concerned, but I am approaching this flight ahead of me for the next 2-3 days, whatever it's going to be, with an elevated level of caution. Because I'm kind of venturing into the unknown. Yeah, it's an airplane that I'm familiar with. I'm using technology that I'm familiar with. It's skills that I've had over the years. But I'm trying to predict the unknowns. I'm trying to predict the things that I'm not going to maybe foresee right off the bat, and trying to develop plans for what I'm going to do. Mainly, it involves the weather. Okay, if I see this weather condition, I'm gonna change my plan. I'm gonna do something else. I'm gonna do this as safely as possible. And then to hear about the loss of a professional, of a champion, and a performer that was Steve Andelin, it made me even take another second of pause and go, okay, if a professional like that, an expert like that, with that level of skill can make a mistake, I can make a mistake. Okay. All right, so let's acknowledge this, and let's focus on the job. So Saturday morning, getting out to the airplane, I think I got out to the airplane at 8 o'clock. Started the walk around, made sure I had all the documents, all the tools I was going to need, all the oil I was going to need for the trip, made sure I could pack everything so that it wasn't going to fall someplace and jam a control. Just really, really thorough with everything I was doing, and had the mechanic who had been working on the airplane walk around with me. And that way, any discrepancies or anything like that, I could point out to him. We get it taken care of right away. And this morning also, Saturday morning, was a car show and a fly-in at the airport that I was taking off from. So there's probably 3,000 or 4,000 people that are filing in and milling about at this airport. And so now I've got people that are coming up and taking pictures of the airplane and saying hi, and they want to know about it, and they're distractions. Okay. I'm a creature of habit. I think most pilots are creatures of habit. And so when you have a distraction like that, my personal policy is I take about 5 steps backwards. From whatever I was just doing, I'll go back and make sure I didn't miss anything. And
it's like when you lose focus in the checklist, you're supposed to go back a few steps.
Exactly.
Not start where you're...
Exactly like that. And so I was being extra vigilant, and we came across a couple problems. We had a couple hurdles that we needed to tackle, but with the mechanic's help, and with the help of the ground crew that was at the show, we were able to get everything taken care of. So got the airplane fueled up, got everything packed inside, got myself comfortable in the cockpit, made sure everybody was clear of the aircraft, and we had wing walkers on each side, and we had a golf cart in front with a follow me sign and a flashing light, and making sure that nobody walked in front of the airplane, and making sure it was a clear path. And so we fired up at 11 o'clock. So I got there at 8. 3 hours later, I'm firing up the airplane. And once I'm in the airplane, I try to put all that stuff behind me. Everything that's happened in the outside world doesn't exist. It's just me, the airplane, and the job I have to do, and the information that's going to come in from here. And so taking off, make it all the way to Austin, Texas. I mean, the Saturday trip was great. It was cold, but I had a heated vest, and that kept me just warm enough that I could tolerate 2.5 hours in this airplane. But made it to Austin, Texas, get to the hotel, open up Facebook, ordering food off of Yelp and all that, and I'm seeing people that are saying blue skies tailwinds to Mark, and I'm like, no, not Mark. Mark Nowakowski was a U.S. Unlimited team member, a competitor, and one of the nicest guys in the aviation world. Always had a smile on his face. I met him once at Toms River, New Jersey. I can't remember the name of the airport now, but he'd stopped there with his Flying Tigers team because they got weathered going into a show. They couldn't make it to their destination, and so they stopped. They made the right decision to not press into marginal conditions.
Was that Ocean County? Or
yeah, Ocean County, yeah. So he and Mark Sorensen with the Twin Tigers landed their airplanes there. They also had a P-51 and I think a B-25 with them. as well. And so like everybody was there and they'd done the right thing and they weren't even rushing out the next morning. It was just, hey, we're here. We're going to make sure the airplane's good and fueled and we'll be on our way. I think they were going to Maryland. I mean, they weren't going that far away. So it was interesting to see him. And then you and I got to see him fly at Oshkosh, the Twin Tigers. And we even got to see the night show. So I'm glad that we got to see that. But unfortunately, Mark lost his life, and he was also with his teammate's son, and we lost the two of them on Saturday. So here I am. Kobe's not even had an incident yet, and I've already lost two people whom were brothers in the community, and I know I've now got the hardest day ahead of me because of the terrain and the weather and the unknowns and the things that I haven't seen before. And I'm now going, okay, if I wasn't serious before, I'm definitely serious now. And I was serious before. There's no joking around. And I've got a customer, I've got a client who owns this aircraft that is trusting me to get it to its destination. And I don't necessarily know how to talk about the events that have happened with them. I was pretty sure that they knew what had happened, but I wasn't going to be the first one to bring it up. I was going to keep it all business. But the next morning, he mentioned it, and we talked about it. Couple exchanges, and then I wrapped up with, okay, all of that aside, we're going to have a safe flight. We're going to get this job done. We're going to do it safe. We're going to do it right. And whatever else we have to deal with, we'll deal with later. But right now, this is the mission. This is what we're going to do. And I mean, the approach and the preparation really made it a successful flight. And every single leg that I did, except for the last one on Saturday, I ended up flying an extra half an hour, an extra about 100 miles from the original planned destination, because the winds that I was seeing while I was up there were lighter than what was forecast before I took off. So while I was up there, do a recalculation. Okay, looks like I can make this. I'm planning 2-hour legs anyway. Every 15 minutes or so, I'm just recalculating. I'm going, yep, the numbers still make sense. Yep, numbers still make sense. Yep, I still have that much gas. And I still had about an hour's reserve, 45 minutes at the least reserve from that calculation of new destination. So I was able to make it further and further and further. And the airplane performed like an absolute champ. No major issues on the way, and really it was an easy flight. Once I got the ailerons dialed in, because it did have a little bit of a roll to it, taken off out of...
You had aileron trim?
Yeah, well, no, I didn't have aileron trim. I had little pieces of window insulation that I was cutting. I think I started off with 2.5 inches, and I added that to the right aileron. And then I put another inch on. So I put a 3.5 inch piece on, and finally I put a 4.5 inch piece on, and it was finally the perfect length to neutralize the aileron, so I didn't have to fight it the entire time. And it made the airplane very, very, very neutral, and made my life even easier. So I could.
Now, where are you attaching those? You're attaching
bottom of the aileron. So the trailing edge, bottom of the aileron, and it's a full span aileron, so it goes out the entire length of the wing. So a little tiny piece actually has a big change. And all I was looking for was balance. I was looking to make the airplane easy to fly.
So by putting it on the bottom of the aileron, and the wind's hitting that, it's going to lift that aileron up ever so slightly.
Which will cause a roll in the direction of the tape that I applied.
Yep, that makes sense.
So...
oh, wow.
But I mean, the mountains were beautiful, and it was interesting to watch the country change Watched the Atlantic Ocean disappear behind me, and the country was green and lush, and then it turned kind of brownish, and then it turned very, very tannish, like orangish almost, and then back again to green out in California, gray for the cities, and then finally I saw the ocean again and the Catalina Islands and all that. But it was very neat to watch the country fly by.
What was your average altitude going out?
65, I would say, is average. There were times I was up at 8,500. There were times I was down at 4,500. But at no point was I lower than 3,000 AGL or so. And the 8,500 sections were for terrain, and there was terrain to the left and right of me that was considerably higher, but what was below me, was well clear. So there were some areas where.
How did you cross the Rockies then?
The Southern Pass down through Casa Grande, Arizona to Palms. I think it's called Palm Springs.
Now, is that a predetermined pass that people know about that is safe, or is that something you had to figure out on your own with ForeFlight?
Oh, I'm 100% sure that I was not the first to do that route. And also, like, there's one cut through by Palm Springs out in California. I'm just gonna pull this up here. This is the route I did. While this loads, where the mountains are way down. It was probably 2,000 MSL or even lower.
Oh, interesting. Okay. But to your left and right, they're still...
Yeah, PSP. Yeah, but to the left and right, they were at 65, 75, 85 down through there. And I can actually...
Now, going through that pass, did you experience any turbulence?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. For the most part, the ride wasn't bad at all. There were some areas coming through Arizona where it was pretty gnarly. And at one point I did have a +4, -2 on the G meter. But yeah, coming through Palm Springs, California, there's a area of low terrain there. So Palm Springs is down around, looks like, yeah, it's 500 feet MSL there. And then about 15 miles to the east, it goes to 10,800.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, it's a very steep elevation climb. I'm sorry, to the west. It's 10.8.
Did you fly over the Forrest Gump country? Isn't that in Arizona?
I must have. I don't know.
I think it's in Arizona. Maybe southern. Okay.
I definitely wasn't thinking about it if I did.
Yeah, of course.
But so, yeah, there's 10,000 feet to the west. To the northwest, it only goes up to 2,200 feet. And then to the northwest, it hits 11.5.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a big cut in there, and it seemed like everybody was going through that. Now, through that particular pass, I picked up about 30 knots of tailwind, which was really nice and very odd. Heading west, because I was going west.
Interesting.
It was very odd to pick up a tailwind through there, but I had the high pressure. It was off to the north, and high pressure rotates clockwise, and I was on the south side of it. So I was getting that flow of air that was flowing out towards the ocean. But then coming past L.A., I was on the east side of L.A., and it's all big peaks out there as well, 9,200 feet, 9,700, 7,500. And then going through the area over by Burbank, it drops down again to about 500 feet. It's almost sea level, and then it comes up to 6,000, and then it goes back down, and then it's up to 92 again. So I was staying to the east side of the really high stuff, which wasn't necessarily the planned route, but I didn't really want to be over, because if I had been over really the planned route, it would have been nothing but big peaks, big valleys at 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 feet.
Now, did ForeFlight, if you do say Florida direct California, will ForeFlight just draw a straight line, or
no, just draw a straight line?
Even if you put an altitude in,
yeah, it just draws a straight line.
Will it tell you then that you're going to
hit
terrain? If you're saying
no, you
direct 6,500 and there's
no.
a 10,000-foot mountain?
No, it won't tell you.
Okay.
Let me do something here.
So you got to be really careful to know that you're.
Well, you got to know how to read the chart,
of course. But we're always taught to kind of look for towers and look for restricted airspace, and it's just good to think about the fact that.
Yeah, and that same profile view,
serious terrain in front of you.
Yeah, that same profile view that was telling me about terrain was also telling me about airspaces that were ahead as well. So it was multifunctional like that. Let me just do Austin, because the terrain is pretty much all the same from Florida to Austin, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do KAUS, and we're going to go send to flights and see what it says. See, it even does a great circle for that, which is pretty neat.
Nice.
So yeah, let's see here. I'm going to press Navlog and see if it does anything there. This is not an advertisement for ForeFlight or anything like that. I mean, no, there's no real warnings in there, and even in the briefing, it's not going to tell you about that. This is yelling about me. It is yelling at me about my max fuel, because this is obviously too long of a leg.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's not telling me that. And this part of the app on Google Chrome on the MacBook is not to be used really in flight anyway. So it's really good on the handheld devices, and that you're going to get a lot more performance out of it there. But no, the technology exists to keep you from touching things, and while most of these high-performance aerobatic airplanes are very minimally equipped, the one I was in also had a Garmin G3X Touch in it, which had terrain warnings in it as well. So I could use that feature, and it would yell at me if I was getting close to anything, and would pop up. It's not, I can't call it the moving map, but you had the artificial horizon on the screen, and if you were approaching any terrain, it would actually show you the terrain in there, and so you could see that as the horizon really kind of matched what was happening outside the aircraft, what was happening out in front.
So it'd actually tell you if a peak was above the horizon or below.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and then it would color code it as well. So yellow was within if you were within 1,000, and red was if you were within 100.
Now we learn about all these tricks.
Tools.
Yeah, thank you. You're right. Tools. We learn about all these tools. So, for example, looking left and seeing the wing against the horizon, and looking right and seeing the wing against the horizon, and knowing whether you're climbing or whether you're descending, et cetera, et cetera. When you're looking at the horizon, is there a tool? I don't want to say trick. Is there a way that you can tell? So, for example, if you see a hill ahead of you or a mountain ahead of you that is below the horizon, does that guarantee that you're above it, or how does that work?
I generally,
and if there's terrain above the horizon,
you're in trouble. I generally take it as if the terrain that's ahead of me is in my line of sight, I'm going to be too close to it. I don't care if I'm going to hit it or not. I'm too close. Okay. So there were some challenges like that where I'm flying westbound and I'm going towards a range of mountains that are too tall for me to climb above, but I have planned out on ForeFlight that I'm going to go to a spot and then I'm going to turn right and go up in between two mountain ranges. Well, I'm going to pass 3 or 4 or 5 other ranges, and I have to take the correct turn. So it was really nice to have the little tiny airplane on the screen that was saying, hey, yeah, you're not to your turn yet, and not lose track. I could see myself, especially in my younger days, using paper navigation, because I know I've screwed this up before with other landmarks. Yeah, looking at the chart and maybe losing track of which cut I've gone past already and which one I'm supposed to get. In the airplanes, if you haven't hit anything yet, you can generally circle right where you are. With the helicopters, you can generally hover if you're not too heavy, or you can also circle where you are. But in the helicopters, you can get much slower. And so that's a tool. To slow down gives you time to evaluate, to make decisions, to see hazards. There wasn't a time during this trip where I needed to slow down to find out where I was, because the tools that I had were so powerful that I wasn't going to get lost, or it was going to be very difficult to get lost. But in the past, I have slowed down, circled, stayed over a spot until I really figured out where I was. And it's very eerie to discover that you're lost, especially when you were real confident about where you were. Yep. And I remember when I was working on my commercial, and I missed. I arrived at a lake that I thought was a later checkpoint. And I was like, wow, I got a really good tailwind today. I got really far. And then when I actually came across the actual lake that was the checkpoint, they were two completely different lakes that, looking back, I'm like, wow, that was really dumb that I confused those two. But those are the kind of mistakes that you make, and it's okay to slow down and take your time and make sure that you identify where you are.
So we talk about, unusual attitudes, and we talk about, like, you train for that. And
people need training for that.
And recovering from that. So what would be your recommendation as a flight instructor for somebody to prepare for a situation where they're on a long cross country and then they find themselves, whether they dazed off a little bit or whatever the case is, they find themselves in a situation where they've got terrain in front of them and they look left and they look right and they've got pretty much terrain all around them.
Yeah.
And they don't really realize, they don't comprehend how they got to where they were, and they need to take some time to figure out where they were. Do you recommend calling ATC first and asking where for a location? Do you recommend climbing? What are the steps that somebody would take in that situation?
Aviate, navigate, communicate. You got to fly the airplane first. Mm-hmm. And if you're approaching a situation that looks bad in front of you and it looks bad to the left and it looks bad to the right, you need to slow down and turn around. Mm-hmm. Okay, and if it's a climbing turn, that's fine. We've practiced minimum controllable airspeed, so we know how to fly and maneuver the aircraft at the slowest it can possibly go. Now, I'm not saying to slow down to MCA, okay, but slow down. Mm-hmm. Slow down, because that's going to shrink your radius. Okay, keep the aircraft under control. Make sure that you're safe. Turn around 180 degrees, because wherever you just came from, you didn't touch anything there, so it's okay. It's safe is behind you, all right? And then navigate. Do I know where I am? Yeah, I know where I am. I can now effectively communicate to ATC to help them find me if they don't already know where I am. Help them find me and help communicate, hey, what are my options? What's around me? Maybe I need to land. Maybe I need another airport. Maybe I'm getting low on gas. Maybe the weather's deteriorating out in front of me and I shouldn't go into that anyway. Mm-hmm. Okay, VFR into IMC.
You're doing the same thing. You're doing a 180.
Doing the same thing, yeah. Okay. You need a 180. You need to turn around. And it's one of those issues where we keep seeing pilots go into deteriorating conditions. They press into it and they don't survive it. The statistic or the studies that have been done, they show it's 6 seconds before a loss of control sets in, or at least disorientation sets in, which leads to loss of control. Because now you can't tell where the airplane is attitude-wise. Your illusions are kicking in. The G-forces are all over your body, and everything that you pull, you think, oh, I'm going up, but the altimeter is unwinding because you're in greater than 60 degrees of bank, but you didn't feel that happen. Yeah. Okay, so your body lies to you, and if your scan isn't really good, you're in trouble. It's a recipe for disaster and death.
If you react quick enough entering IMC,
you need to get your eyes down.
Eyes down, but also, I mean, what about if you're equipped with an autopilot? Does it make sense to flip that on?
Sure.
Again?
I have done that. I was coming out of Martha's Vineyard on an evening, coming off at 2-4.
That blackout.
And area. Yeah, it was black hole effect. Came off the runway, overcast night, no moon, no lights. It was black on black with black highlights. And my body was screaming, "You're in a left roll." And I kept kind of internal monologue. "No, you're not. Look at your instruments. Look at your instruments." And I reached over and I just turned the autopilot on. And the autopilot in this airplane, that first mode, was wings level, vertical speed hold. So I was climbing at 700 feet per minute.
Like cap 140?
It was a cap 140.
Okay.
It was 700 feet per minute, wings level. And
it just holds your climb.
It holds the climb. It changes the pitch to keep the climb rate whatever it is. Okay. So I pressed that button and I continued to scan because I don't trust a cap 140. Okay. But I knew it had that initial mode. So knowing my systems helped. And I kept my scan going until the illusion went away, until the body kind of calmed down, until the brain was able to suppress those feelings of what's the line from Bare Naked Ladies? Chickadee China, the Chinese chicken.
Oh, vertigo?
Vertigo. Until the vertigo, I love that you knew where I was going. Until the vertigo subsided. Okay. And I could get back control of my own body. Now I was smart enough to not, try to react to that, but I was also making sure that the airplane didn't give me any other indications. The instruments didn't give me any other indications that it was doing something weird. And even then, if I was experiencing any kind of instrumentation failure, like if I'd have lost the vacuum system, the directional gyro may have started to rotate, indicating a turn. But if the rate of turn indicator didn't go anywhere, I know that's lying. Or I have to determine which one is.
And what is
correct.
the autopilot feeding off of at that point?
The autopilot is feeding off of the rate of turn.
Okay.
So that's how it knows wings level.
Okay.
So if it doesn't see anything there, it's not going to give any inputs.
Okay.
And that wasn't the first time that I've had that illusion. I got that illusion once before. It was right after Star Wars Episode 2 came out. My buddies and I left the theater and we went to my hometown airport and rented an airplane and took off. Same thing, black hole effect. Take off over a cornfield in Ohio at night.
Yep.
Just nothing on nothing with nothing. Okay. So coming out of there, kind of same thing happened. Lock down on the instruments. Make sure the airspeed doesn't go anywhere from VY. Vertigo subsided, good to go. So it was interesting how an experience that had happened 15 years prior kind of came back and I was able to use that same thing. But it all came down to the training that I'd had in private instrument, commercial, and the things that I had paid attention to because my flight instructor said, you got to do this. And the big thing that we see private pilots struggle with getting into the instrument is making sure that they can fly the airplane solely with those reference to the instruments and understanding how their control inputs, what changes those will make and what counteractions or what other inputs need to be made every time you make a control input. Because anytime you move one control, you need to move at least two others. And so knowing and anticipating and applying all those together make you a real master of the aircraft. And that's one of the things that in instrument flying, if we focus on it, it really, really helps us out.
You say every time you move one control, you need to move at least two others. Are you talking about there's only three control surfaces, right? So
power is. I'm also.
Oh, you're including
power.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So if you pitch up, you have to add a little bit of power. If you don't want to slow down, if you add some power, you need a little bit of right rudder. Same thing on the way down, just reversed. Ailerons, you need rudder, and if you're turning, you're going to need elevator. So roll the airplane. Don't want the nose to fall. You got to pull.
Yep.
If you're pulling, you're increasing drag. You got to add some power. If you're rolling the airplane, you need rudder. If you're adding power, you need a rudder. If you're decreasing power, you're probably going to need a little bit of rudder in the other way. So understanding that you're going to be busy.
Yeah.
And training to make all those inputs and all those motions is going to save you in times of stress. And there is no greater stress in the aircraft than a loss of control in flight, which is why upset recovery training is so important. Okay, we have to train for these areas of maximum stress in order to handle them and perform. when we need it the most.
And retrain.
Oh yeah, and there's currency. You need to maintain that currency.
All right, so I want to get to some online questions that we've had coming in.
Let's do it.
But before I do, because of the importance of this topic, was there anything we kind of segued away from it? Is there anything you want to wrap up with regards to your flight out west and the events of that weekend?
I mean, we lost 3 professionals and some innocent people this weekend. And only we can prevent that. Just want to make sure that whatever you're doing, whatever operation you're conducting, that you approach it with the correct mindset, with a safety mindset, and that you just make the best decision that you can. And sometimes that decision is not to go fly. And I know that there was a flight in a Hawker that was supposed to go from, I think, Tennessee or Kentucky or something like that up to Bristol, Connecticut, and the really wicked weather that spawned tornadoes in Virginia. Mm-hmm. And the pilot for the corporation said, we're not going. And if you're working for a corporation that doesn't understand that decision and presses you to go and doesn't understand that the alternative to not flying is dying, there's a lot of the corporations that are hiring that do understand. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to walk away. Okay, sorry. So, it was a sad loss this weekend. And those of us who are still here just need to get back in the air and fly with their memory and take them with you and celebrate what they've done and cherish the lessons that they taught us. We'll see them again someday. That's what I believe. Mm-hmm. But until then, let's get back up there in the sky and do it right, do it safe. That's it. You never know what's going to be your time. So love with all your heart.
Some good advice.
Yeah.
Speaking of doing it right and doing it safe, how about we talk about some questions that students are asking?
Let's do it.
So the first one, I think, Rob, you'll appreciate this. This comes from a student who is just learning how to fly. And their question is, what's the difference between mixture and throttle? I had a trial flight in a Cessna 152, and it was my biggest question.
Sure. The mixture determines the amount of fuel that gets introduced into the combustion chamber per the amount of air going in. The throttle adjusts the amount of air that's going in. So if you don't add any gas, if you don't add the mixture, it doesn't matter how much air you give it, you won't get combustion, you won't have a running engine. But there are times in flight where you don't need all of the gas that the fuel injection or the fuel the carburetor may be able to give the engine. You can take some of that away to increase efficiency. So the throttle is going to be there to control the amount of air that your engine pumps, because the engine is really just an air pump. So if you limit that, then you get your RPM. But for any given RPM, you can give it more gas, you can give it less gas to change the efficiency of it. So in cruise flight, we'll set an RPM that's about 65 to 75% power, somewhere in that range. And then we'll take away gas that wouldn't have been burned anyway to try and reach the theoretical stoichiometric mixture, which is where you're burning every little bit of oxygen and every little bit of fuel with nothing left over to come out be wasted out the exhaust. And all you would have out the exhaust is pure carbon monoxide and other byproducts, but no remnants of fuel remain and no remnants of oxygen remain that could have been burned. So that's why we use the mixture. We use it to increase our efficiency or our power when we need it.
So is that why when we're leaning the mixture, the point where we start leaning it, we're twisting the knob counterclockwise, nothing's happening, and then we feel the drop.
Yeah, I mean, you may not perceive it, but if
we turn it right a little bit and then we're good.
If you're watching the exhaust gas temperatures, you'll start to see them go up as you lean, even before you may hear or feel a change in engine performance. Okay. And those temperatures are going up because there's no little excess droplets of fuel coming out to absorb and retain and to carry away heat.
Interesting.
So you're burning more. Mm-hmm. You're leaving less behind, and so you're generating more heat, and the heat that is generated is now getting dissipated into the metal, into the exhaust gases, instead of being held in the droplets and leaving out the exhaust.
So you could cruise at full mixture, and you're not damaging the airplane, you're just wasting gas.
Well, that is even potentially a problem too, because if you are too rich, mm-hmm. This is a very, 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 very rare condition. Mm-hmm. But being too rich and having too much fuel could actually break down the thin coating of oil on the cylinder walls.
Oh, interesting.
And then you don't have any of that oil protecting the metal on metal from happening, and you're washing your cylinders. So depending on your airplane, you could actually have an over-rich mixture. That's rather rare of a condition. I wouldn't worry about it too much, especially in the Cessna 172s, the 0320s, the 0360s. I wouldn't worry about it so much in those. However, that could be happening, and that could be leading to early engine failure as well. So if you have an engine that's rather low time, but your oil analysis that you do at your oil changes is showing a lot of metal particulate, if you've been operating too rich, that could be causing that problem, that metal on metal action. Or if you're wearing out cylinders too quickly, that could be a problem there. So follow your pilot's operating handbook, your manufacturer's recommendations for leaning and operations to make sure that you take care of that engine, and you aren't wasting gas and you aren't wasting expensive engines just because you weren't leaning as per the manufacturer's recommendation.
Got it. All right. So this one, I'm kind of interested.
Excuse me.
I think we kind of know the answer to this, but I'm kind of interested to know how you answer it if a student were to ask you this question.
Okay.
So it's an hour. You're half an hour into somebody's discovery flight, and they turn to you and they go, "Rob, why don't airport runways have a ramp at the end to help the plane get off the ground?"
If I'm using all of the runway, probably making some poor choices there. Yeah. So generally my airplanes, the airplanes that we fly, only need about 1,700 feet, 2,000 feet at the most to get off the ground. And so I suppose if I was flying from an 1,800-foot strip, I would want that ramp at the end. But
you would want that ramp at the end?
Yeah, I would want that ramp at the end. But unfortunately, in a tricycle-geared airplane, your propeller is going to be the first thing that gets to that ramp, and the compression of the nose strut as you hit that and try to make that little ramp is not going to go well for the longevity of that propeller. But Russian aircraft
would the ramp even assist you? Because it might actually.
No, it does.
It might actually take you out of ground effect, though, right? I guess.
Oh, it's going to take you out of ground effect, but it's going to get you launched up there, and then you can do like a half G unload and let the airplane accelerate in that half G.
Interesting.
And you won't stall. But yeah, the Russian aircraft carriers, and I think even the British carriers for their jump jets have a ski lift that ramps you off it.
Interesting. All right.
Or ski jump, I think they call it.
All right, let's throw in this. Rob, what is the rarest airplane you have ever flown on? Not necessarily flown, but flown on.
Well, rarest. I think there's a 3-way tie, and I've flown all of them. So, or maybe it's a 4-way tie. In 1934, or I don't remember if it was a 34 or a 28, Ford Trimotor. I flew that. a 1941 de Havilland Chipmunk, flew that. I have flown the dirigible. No. I have flown the Goodyear Blimp in its old form, and I have flown the Goodyear Blimp in its Zeppelin form. Mm-hmm. So I've logged time in all 4 of those different airframes. And I would say the Goodyear Blimp is the more rare one because there's only 3 of them in the country. Well, in the United States in the Zeppelin form. And the de Havilland Chipmunk, actually the trimotor at the time I think was one of 2. And then the Chipmunk, there's a dozen Chipmunks out there, but it was a really, really awesome airplane to fly.
Cool.
Yep.
And then the final question of the night is, what is the simplest way to understand and explain Coffin Corner?
Well, Coffin Corner is the point at which your stall speed and your max Mach operating speeds meet. And what's happening there is you're reaching supersonic flow over the airfoil, which generally will result in a nose down, or could possibly result in either a nose down or a nose up pitching moment. More than likely, it will be nose down in Mach tuck, but also could just be structural damage. Okay, bad thing. But if you slow down at all, you're at your stall speed, your wing stalls. So you can't increase angle of attack. You can't increase lift. You can't slow down. You can't go faster. You can't get away from stall, and you can't go any faster. You're in a bad spot. So you have to do this very delicate dance of working back the power, lowering the nose all at the same time in order to keep the aircraft from accelerating anymore and developing supersonic flow over the wings or over other structures on the aircraft, while not losing airspeed so rapidly that your angle of attack changes to exceed critical. On an airliner, if you stall, you're stalling at your wingtips first, which the wings are generally swept, so the tip stalls, that's way back, and now you get this nose up pitching moment, which is bad, because then you are definitely exceeding critical angle of attack, so that makes everything worse. And then Mach tuck is trying to happen, which is a nose down moment, so you get all these things kind of working together. So really, Coffin Corner, the problem with Coffin Corner is that you can't speed up anymore because you're at max Mach operating, and you'll get supersonic flow, which is a lift destroyer over the wing. And you're also right at your stall speed and your critical angle of attack, so you can't slow down without stalling. All bad things. So you have to do, again, this very delicate dance of slowing the airplane down while keeping the
Can you
angle
just
of
do
attack.
like a falling leaf at that point?
Well, it would be a rather violent falling leaf. It would be pretty bad because you're also not. It's not like in stall when we're at 40 knots or 80 knots in your bigger airplanes or anything like that, where it's like, oh, my flight path just starts to drop off and it's not a big deal. You're still going through the air at 500 some miles an hour true airspeed. You're indicating 250 or 270, something like that. But the forces now go from where the airplane is designed to have them to, or the airflow, the relative wind goes from where it's designed to have it to, oh, hey, I'm now at this angle on your different structures, and you could have overstresses in other areas besides just the wing. It's a very bad place to be, which is why they call it Coffin Corner. I have talked to some pilots who have been there, and they just talk about it as you got the stall warning going off and the overspeed clacker at the same time, and you're working very hard as a crew to keep that aircraft under control and to get it slowed back down. So yeah, that could be a bad place to be.
Interesting thing to try to sim sometime. If they can actually.
I know I have seen Mach tuck in DCS World. I can't say that I've seen Coffin Corner necessarily.
Got it.
Yeah.
So the airliners you mentioned, they stall at the wingtips, which is
swept wing.
Swept wings.
Yep, swept wing.
So they stall, yep, that makes sense. So are you saying that an airliner stalling is not a good thing even in a controlled environment?
Oh, it's very bad. The stall characteristics of those jets is you get some very, very divergent forces where.
So have test pilots taken a 737 out and installed it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And they go through stall series during certification. You can find videos for that online, 737, 787, the Airbuses, the A380, how they went through all their stall programs. And they even do the high-speed stuff as well. So they'll take it to the edges and beyond of where the engineers say, yeah, this is the limit. And they're up there wearing pressurized suits and helmets and parachutes and all kinds of stuff just in case the aircraft breaks apart or they lose control of it and have to get out. So the aircraft have been tested, and the procedures that are now in place are the best for recovery from stall, but the focus is still, and as it always should be, on prevention. Do not stall the aircraft. Be aware of all the warning signs, and if you screwed up and weren't aware and you didn't prevent it, now how to fix it effectively. And you have to push. You have to push on that control column in order to install that aircraft.
Okay.
I would rather have to deal with compressibility than stall. That's my personal. So if I'm in Coffin Corner, I'm going to be pulling the throttles back, but lowering the nose to make sure that I maintain below the critical angle of attack, and I'll deal with the mock tuck issues if they present themselves.
Got it.
So,
all right, we'll take us home.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us for this first video podcast, the video edition.
I'll have to wave to my camera that I never talked to.
I'll wave to my camera, which I hopefully spent some time talking to.
Yeah, you did.
But not
Yeah,
too much. And then we have the center camera here, which, I'm not sure how we're going to use it, but, whatever. Well, thank you very much for coming along. If you enjoyed this, tell your friends. If you didn't, tell your enemies. And join us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Monday night live streams. We're twitch.tv/spread aviation. Real easy to find us there. And questions, comments, concerns are at hello@spreadaviation.com.
Follow us on Twitter.
Follow us on Twitter. Spread Aviation.
Yep.
What are you doing, lazy bums?
All right. That's it. 33. See ya.
Fly safe.